Welcome back to Hoppline. I finally got my hands on a Swing V4 from F1. Here it is, and here's the review. So just a quick disclaimer up front, this is an unpaid, unbiased review. I reached out to F1 and I asked them for a demo, and they forwarded my request to the F1 Pro Shop in Germany, and they actually sent me a demo wing without any obligations, so I'm free to say whatever I want to. So let me start with a brief history of my experiences with F1 wings in the last couple of years. I've tried quite a few of them, and I pretty much always liked the shape. They are all very light and responsive, and the only thing I didn't like were the soft handles. And probably a lot of you will agree, if you've made the step towards hard handles and you're used to manipulating the wing, it's so hard to go back. There's the occasional surf session, and when you know you're riding a lot of flagged out, I still do prefer the soft handles just for saving some weight. But on most of my sessions, I'm on hard handles. So when F1 announced the hard handles and the boom, I knew I wanted to get this wing for a review. And then at the beginning of 2024, I went to the Fehmarn Fall Festival and I got my hands on what I think was a prototype of the F1 handle. And it just ticked all my boxes. It was small in diameter, so I could grip it easily with my tiny hands and gloves in the winter. It had like an oval shape, nice cushioning, protection in terms of hitting your board, pistol grip. So anything I asked for was in this handle. And because I knew I liked most of the wings itself, the shape, the material, the lightness, and how they ride, I knew this would be a really nice combo. So let's start this review with build quality, and I can't say much about it on the long run. I only had it for a couple of sessions, but from my experience, I can say it's top notch. And there's a few things standing out. I think first of all, the first thing I noticed unwrapping the wing was the buttons. They are not a plastic or fiber stick. They are a flexi material, more flat, more streamlined, and more or less unbreakable. That's really nice, and it's a good support for the trailing edge. Trailing edge is folded, so it's a little stiffer, not breaking over time. And you can tell that a lot of thoughts went into the wing and the layout and thinking about making it as light as possible. They left anything you don't need, they left it away, and they kept just a tiny bit of protection, just enough so it's not going to break, and anything extra is just added weight. There's two valves, one on the front strut and one on the center strut, so you can run different pressures. And the flap that's protecting the SUP valve on the center strut is actually missing. And the first time I unboxed the wing, I thought it was broken. You never know, it's a demo wing, but they left it on purpose. And if you think about it, it makes perfectly sense, because if you want to have a final package which is really responsive and perfect in flagged out position, you need to have a light wing, and you're achieving a light wing by saving weight everywhere. If you're saving a few grams here, it's probably not going to matter, but if you're saving a few grams everywhere, it just adds up, and it just gives you this nice total package. And I think the designers have done a really good job in sacrificing a few things here and there, which you don't really need, but gaining a lot of functionality in terms of a really nice and light product. So let's run through the setup real quick before we get into the riding characteristics. And like I said before, there's two valves for inflation. There's one on the front strut. They recommend 9 psi, and you could go a little lower if you have gusty conditions, so it becomes a little bit more flexible. There's a second valve without the flap that's running 10 psi, and it's really nice and rigid. You've got three options. You've got the semi-rigid handles, which are more or less soft handles, but just a little stiffer. They are really nice. Probably the best soft handles I've ever tried, but I'm still not a fan of soft handles. They stick out quite nice from the center strut, but they're still soft handles, so you can't really manipulate the wing, especially in tags. If you want to tilt it to one direction, that's not really possible. So for the hard handles, there are three different sizes. If you're on a wing 3 square meters or smaller, you're having a slightly smaller front handle, but on all the other wings, the hard handles are the same and interchangeable. And for me, my usual daily driver setup is 3.5 and 4.5, so I would have exactly the same handles and I can swap them over from one wing to the other. I think they ship with the soft semi-rigid handles, and the boom and the hard handles you have to buy as an extra, but they are quite inexpensive. They're a little bit heavy, like on other wings, they are casted plastic, they are not carbon, so they're a little bit more on the heavy side. But because you're having a really nice light wing, the total package is still very, very light. Setting up, changing the handles is really easy. You do have to deflate the center strut at least a little bit, but that's really easy. I've got this really quick SUP valve, just push the button, deflate it a little bit, and then you can take them out. There's a little strap that goes into a little latch on both sides, and they are rigid as hell. When I first looked at the system, I was not sure if the benefit of manipulating your wing would transfer to the center strut, but it's a really solid and rigid construction and I didn't have any problems. So let's move on to the important stuff, and this is how it behaves on the water. And the first time I took the swing V4 out, it was a low to no wind session. It was a little bit frustrating because I was not used to the wing, the way it pumps, and it felt like it didn't have the highest amount on low power grunt. And if you think about a wing, like a front wing, a foil, it's always a compromise. If you want super easy and fast takeoffs and almost no wind, you need like a thicker profile. And if you want to go fast, it needs to be thinner. So it's a compromise. And it's the same with wing design. If you want to have a decent amount of speed and ease in flagged out position, you can have the highest amount of low end grunt at the same time. And I think with the Swing V4, F1 sacrificed a little bit of low end grunt towards higher performance while you're riding, and that actually pays off. And you can compensate a little bit with a pumping technique, but it's something you need to get used to. So it's not really bad, it's just something you need to be aware of and something you need to get used to. So after I kind of learned how to pump the swing, I was able to get off quite easy. With a 4 square meter wing, I was able to take off in 10 knots of wind and probably even a little bit less, let's say 8 to 10 and 10 in the gusts. And once you're up and riding, you just benefit from this missing grunt in the low end because you don't need it anymore. And from now on, you got better performance. So I think the main advantage of the Swing V4 is how smooth and evenly it rides over a wide spectrum of wind, from low wind to high wind gusts. It's just so easy and controllable, especially with the hard handles, because you can manipulate the wing a little bit more. It's effortless with really good weight and power distributions on your hands. If you have it above your head, it's not lifting hardly. You can just take it in attack. You can just pull it over and grab with the other hand and just take it down. So it's really easy, and even maneuvers which you're not really familiar with, maybe a duck jibe or whatever you're working on, it's just easy to learn and progress. And I think the main thing everyone's talking about is flagged out position, because that's where it just behaves like it wasn't there. You can flag it out and it just stays in place. It's not wobbling around. It's not putting any stress or power on your arm. Swapping hands is really easy. The handle in the front is really comfortable. So I think in the surf, I didn't have much surf. I only had a few wind and tanker waves, but I surfed a fair bit and it was really playful. So if I had to put my finger on one thing that really makes this Swing V4 stick out from the crowd, it would be the flagged out position and how effortless it follows you in the surf and how it almost disappears. Like if you have a surfing background like me, it's always hard to catch a wave and then still have this wing and drag it behind. And I had wings that were just like bouncing around. And the Swing V4 is probably the best wing I had in waves. It just, yeah, it almost disappears. So I really enjoyed the ease of use in a wide variety of conditions, from underpowered to overpowered, and the hard handles are just insanely good. They're perfectly matched to my hands, and I have small hands. The pistol grip is amazing, and just holding it instead of flagged out, holding it on the pistol grip and then just manipulating it a little bit, dipping it down to just accelerate a little bit. That works perfectly smooth. I think the only reason I would use the soft handles would be in surf session, where I want my setup to be as light as possible. And for just free riding and freestyle, I would take the hard handles. Jumping, they say the strike is the one you want to get if you're into jumping. If you're into heavy freestyle, that might be the case, but it doesn't say you can't jump with the swing. I've done some jumps and they were just amazing. Hang time was really good. I'm not a freestyle person. I can do like a 360, and I've done a few and they were just perfectly fine. One thing I noticed, and this is why we're not seeing so much footage from me riding, is that the GoPro attached to the center strut, to the end of the center strut, was actually pulling the wing down. And the same with the front strut. Just putting a GoPro anywhere on the wing really changed the riding characteristics, and to get a really good feel for the wing, I took it off. So who is it for? I think this Swing V4 is for an intermediate to advanced rider. If you're a total beginner, never been on a foil before, you might be better off with the Origin, because I think takeoffs are just a little bit easier. If you are heavily into freestyle and that's all you're doing, you might be better off with the Strike. It's a little faster, I guess, and it's got like a little bit more power, but it's not so easy and controllable, and you have to know what you're doing. So if you're like me, doing a lot of free ride sessions with occasional jumps and a few rotations, the Swing is, I think, a perfect choice. It's really effortless, controllable and predictable, and it just enhances your riding because it's so predictable. If you're working on, let's say, attack or whatever you're working on, progress is faster because the wing is just doing what it's supposed to do and not pulling you in any direction. So this is it from the Swing V4, and I hope someone from F1 watched this and will hook me up with some more F1 gear in the future, because I really enjoyed making this review and I really enjoyed riding the Swing V4. It's really predictable. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the hard handles, and I would have loved to try the boom, which was not available. So pretty good wing, probably in my top 3 I've ever tried. So if you're looking for a free ride wing, if you're intermediate, if you want to progress fast, this is a really good choice. If you have any questions, use the comments, and I'm hopefully gonna see you back on this channel.